Hi everyone, this is the first time I've filmed a video like this and I'm really excited to just sit and talk at the camera about my favourite thing ever. This is every book that I absolutely loved in the year 2024 and it's heavily inspired by Steph's video, which I'll pop a screenshot of up there, and I'm just going to talk about every book I absolutely loved in 2024 and I hope you enjoy. A book series that I absolutely love is the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, which I read for the first time I think in summer of 2022, and since then it's always been my favourite series. My online friend Lillian, she put me onto it and I was so grateful that she did because I've been obsessed ever since. I reread it this year. I reread the entire series and again, amazing, but I'm not including it in this video because it wasn't the first time I read it, so it just continued being my favourite from the last time I read it. But a book that I did read is The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson, which, if you didn't know, is the same author as who wrote A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This book is incredible. I loved it. I loved every moment. I couldn't put it down. The plot was incredible. It scared me, but it was fascinating. I think I finished it in 2 days because it would not leave my mind. I would put the book down and then I'd pick it right back up because I couldn't not think about it. This book is about a girl called Belle who her mother disappeared when she was younger and they were filming a documentary about what happened to her, but during the filming Rachel Price, which is Belle's mom, she came back and obviously surprised everyone because they thought she was dead. And this whole book is just what really happened to her, and it's really interesting because your perspective really switches throughout the book, because I was blaming all these different people and I was still surprised when I found out what really happened at the end. But it's very fast-paced, never boring. Maybe the start's a little bit slow, but once you get into it, it's incredible. Couldn't put it down. I love books like that, especially thrillers, because thrillers are meant to be like dramatic. So I think this book met my standards of thrillers really well and I loved every moment. I'd also like to clarify that every book that I'm showing here are 5 stars. I think that's kind of a given based on the fact that they're all my favourites, but they're all 5 stars. This next book really changed my view of life, I'd say. My perspective completely changed after reading this book. It is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. But this book, I can't really say anything about it because it's a memoir, but it's about her life and it shows like the struggles of being in your early 20s, and it's a really great book. And even though I'm not that age yet, I don't really know how to describe it. It really set my mind to how life will be, and that even though things might go wrong, it's not always going to end up terrible. Like, one door might close and another will open, and it really changed my perspective on life after reading this, which was fantastic. I loved it. It also highlighted a lot to me about relationships in both the romantic and the platonic sense. I highlighted a lot of quotes that I thought were so beautiful, such as this one where she's talking about her life and she says, "But I can't say it was all tragic because it wasn't." And then a little bit later in that paragraph it says, "But sometimes I woke up in a loving tangle of hungover girls filled with nothing but comfort and joy." And I think that's just so beautiful, because even though your life is really difficult, you're always going to be able to find love even in like the darkest moments, because there's always going to be someone there even when you're not expecting it. And I think that's really beautiful. Another quote in this book that stunned me is talking about heartbreak for the first time. And this is where she says, "It was the first time I'd experienced heartbreak and I never thought the overwhelming feeling would be such acute confusion, as if I had no reason to trust anyone ever again." Because when you go through heartbreak for the first time, it's really confusing because you don't understand how it can switch so fast. And I really relate to that. Even though my first heartbreak wasn't severe, I was still a kid, to be honest. Like, I'm pretty sure I was only 14, but it still hits either way. Like, heartbreak will always hurt, even no matter what age you are. So I thought that quote was really beautiful too. Next, we're moving on to my favourite series in the world. It low-key overtook A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which I'm quite surprised about, because A Good Girl's Guide to Murder had me hooked, and I've finished every book probably in the span of like 2 weeks, whereas these ones took me a long time to read. But it's the most gorgeous stories I've ever read, and of course I've got to be talking about the Boys of Tommen series. So we'll start off with the first duology, which is Binding and Keeping 13, and it's such a beautiful love story. It captures all the different aspects of love, because it's going from a point of view of both Shannon, who's, I believe she's 15 in the first book. She's 15 and she's been bullied her entire life by her people that she went to school with and her family, as her dad was an abusive drunk, and she's never had a good life. She's always been really unhappy until she moves to a new school because of the bullying, and she meets Johnny, a professional, on the road to being a professional rugby player, and he's a completely different person to her, but on her first day he accidentally knocks her out, and from there it's history basically. And it shows it's very slow burn. The first book is really slow. It's obvious that they're in love with each other, but I don't think anything happens until after halfway through. And look at the size of the book. It's huge. But it's so gorgeous. I loved every moment of this book. And it's just gorgeous. Like, I have not read a love story anything like this, and I'm so glad that I did read this, because I'd seen it all over TikTok, but I didn't want to read it for quite a while, and then I just decided I'm gonna buy this book, and I'm so glad that I did. And then on the other side is Keeping 13, which they are actually together at this point, thank God. And it's just it's pretty similar in terms of the first book, but it follows the relationship now, and it focuses a lot more on Shannon's family, I think, and how Johnny tries to save her from there. And it's, again, really gorgeous. I love them both so much. I always have, I always will. They're my favourites. I love them to bits. And the books are huge. I don't remember how long Binding 13 is. I think it could be 600 pages or so. Closer to 700, but this one is like 800 of this. 800 pages plus another 700, which is about 1600 pages, which is so much. And it makes the perfect romance duology ever. And then we also have the Saving and Redeeming 6 duology, which is also in the Boys of Tommen series, which I definitely prefer Binding and Keeping 13 over Saving and Redeeming 6, but I think that's because these books are a lot darker. Obviously it's like similar because the books are about Joey, who is Shannon's brother, so they obviously grew up in the same house, but I feel these books are darker and they have a lot more triggering scenes in them compared to the others. But Saving and Redeeming 6, first off, Saving 6, perfect book, love every moment. It's about Joey Lynch, Shannon's older brother, who's struggling because of their family life and because his older brother Darren just left him alone to fend for himself, because Darren was helping their family and then left because he couldn't handle it anymore. So then Joey was made the man of the house when he was only 12 years old. So this is about Joey, and he meets Aoife, who is a girl in his class, and it just follows their story. And for the majority of this book, again, they're just friends, but there's a lot of tension going on. You can tell that they're in love with each other, but they won't do anything about it. And to top off the heavy subjects, Joey's a drug addict, so Aoife tries to help him through it, and she does well for the most part. Props to her, but this book is really hard-hitting because their relationship goes through a lot of struggles, whereas with Redeeming Sex, it takes a while to get better, but compared to Saving Sex, it's happier, I feel. Maybe sadder in a way, but compared to the first book, at least they have each other, I'd say, in this one. But they're perfect together. I love them, and I 100% recommend this duology. But 100% look up the trigger warnings for both, because they are really hard-hitting at times. And then to top off the Boys of Tommen series, we have Taming Seven, which is the last book of 2024 I read, and this is about Gibbsy, who is Johnny's best friend, and Claire, who's Shannon's best friend, and Gibbsy, whose actual name is Gerard, but they call him Gibbsy because of his last name. Him and Claire have been best friends since they were little kids, and Gibbsy's like the funny friend, like he's always joking around, but he went through some trauma when he was younger, which he suppresses, and it takes a while for them to actually realise how much he's going through. And obviously Claire and Gibbsy fall in love, which is difficult because they've always been in love with each other, but as they get older, those feelings become a lot more mature. Even though they've always been in love, being in love when you're children and being in love with when you're teenagers is a very different thing. So they struggle to grasp that, and yeah, it's just I love this book. Not many people do like this book because they feel it's different. It's like the vibes are different, because I'm pretty sure this one was a proper publishing company, whereas these ones were self-published. But I still love it because Gibbsy was my favourite, like one of my favourite characters in the other books. So having a book all about him and his struggles really hit, and I loved it. It's perfect to me. This whole series is absolutely perfect, and I wouldn't ask for more. It's perfect. I love every single book, and I cannot wait for Claiming 10. Even though I'm not a massive fan of Lizzie, I'm hoping her book will give me more information, and I probably would end up loving her by the end of it. Let's be real. And now we've got The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. And this book, it's probably my least favourite out of all of these, because the only reason I love it so much is because it's just such a comforting book. You know what I mean? Like, it's a small town romance between the grumpy farmer and, like, it's Grumpy and Sunshine, which is like the best trope ever, and it's a small town romance. What better can you get? But it's basically about this girl called Jeannie, and she moves into the town to run her aunt's cafe, and she's struggling with it because she was in like a corporate job before, and now she's in a tiny cafe. And she meets Logan, who is the grumpy farmer, and he kind of helps her settle in and stuff, but of course they fall in love. But he is struggling with, like, his past relationship didn't go well, so he's scared to fall in love again, but Jeannie's too amazing and he basically can't hold himself back. So there you go. But it's such a cozy book. I read it in autumn because The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and it really gives Gilmore Girls vibes, and yeah, I think it's perfect if you just want a nice little romance book to read. No struggles, no problems, just a lovely romance book with a tiny bit of angst. But when I say tiny bit, I mean tiny bit. It's like a chapter and then everything's fixed again, which is perfect for a cozy romance read. Okay, now I think this is a controversial one, but A Little Life. I know it was a horrifying book, but everything about it, the writing was beautiful, the characters, I was attached to all of them, and it just hit. If the writing makes me that upset, that makes it good, I'd say. But if you're going to read this, 100% look up the trigger warnings. You cannot read this book without being prepared, because it's horrifying. The ending, like most of the chapters, they're not really chapters, they're like split into like 8 bits, and it's like 800 pages, almost 720. But the writing is tiny, like look at that, the writing's tiny, so it is probably could do 2 pages with the size of the writing. But the chapters, most of them are sad, like gut-wrenchingly sad, not just like, oh my god, someone broke up. It's like, it hits. I couldn't sleep after reading the end of one of them, and I sobbed when I finished the book because it really hits. I don't really know how to describe what the book's about. It's basically 4 friends, they live in New York together, and it explores the trauma that they go through, specifically Jude, because they put most of the trauma into him, which is lovely. And it's a gorgeous book, that's all I can say, but you can't read it without being prepared. But it's fantastic, but it's definitely a controversial take by saying this is one of my favourite books. Okay, so we only have 2 books to go because I didn't really read that much this year compared to normal. I think I read like 10 books less than I normally do, and a lot of them were quite, like, I read the Percy Jackson series, so that was 5 books of my year. They're literally like children's books, you know what I mean? And I also read the Hunger Games series, but The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was my favourite. I loved that. I couldn't even tell you why I loved it. I just loved the Hunger Games, and I read this before watching the movie, so it hit better, I think, because I'd seen the Hunger Games movies before, so I knew everything about it. But this was like crazy because so much happens in it. I also annotated it, which I kind of forgot I'd done that, but it's perfect. It's a fabulous prequel because I hate Snow in the other books when he's the president, but I really did feel for him at first, and then not at all, because he feels like a totally different character to the older version of him. So, you know. And I also think this is perfect to add into this video, seeing as, oh Christ, what's it called? Sunrise on the Reaping, I think, is coming out in 2 months, which is so exciting. I can't wait. I can't believe we're getting Haymitch's story, finally. But yeah, loved it. Basically, if you haven't watched Hunger Games, this is the prequel where President Snow in the other books and movies is younger. He's one of the mentors. He gets paired with District 10, the District 12 girl, Lucy Gray. She's fabulous. She's an icon. Love her so much. Rachel Zegler slayed as her in the movie. And they win, but a little bit of cheating goes on. And then, like, stuff goes wrong, basically. They win, but not in a good way. Stuff goes wrong. It's not a fabulous ending, but it's a great book. I love every moment of it. It really interested me. And I also feel it gave you more of an insight into the games, which not a lot of books do. And the final book of the year, well, final favourite book of the year, is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. And I've only read the first one. I'm gonna buy all 4 of the next ones with money that I got for Christmas. Because I asked for the others for Christmas, but I didn't get them. So I'm gonna use the Warstones vouchers and some money to buy the others. Because this book was gorgeous. It's a romance? I don't know if it counts as a romance because they're a bit of a dodgy couple. I don't like him, but they are like, they kind of work, but she deserves better, if you know what I mean. So Magnolia, she's rich, they live in London, she's famous, but I don't know how. I didn't really grasp that. I think her family's just rich. And then BJ, what a name. He's also rich and famous, and they used to date, but he broke her heart, but she's still like in love with him. He's still in love with her, but they do it in a really dodgy way. And he cheated on her too, so whoopee. But she's very obviously in love with him. I kind of hope they don't get together. Like, in the end, I hope she gets with someone better, but probably won't happen. She'll probably get with him, but it's a gorgeous book. The writing is why I loved it so much, I think, because I got mad so much while reading this because of the characters, but it's so gorgeous, the writing. So that is all of my favourite books from 2024. I hope you enjoyed listening to me rant about random books for, I don't really know how long this recording is, but for however long it is. And yeah, I'm gonna go and enjoy my banoffee pie now. That's really needing to be eaten because it was made for Christmas and it's now January. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time, hopefully. Bye!